not this 1, 2, 3 up them. No, okay.
It's a mystery object.
It's a mystery object. It looks like feet of a couch or something.
Kia ora. True. E hiwa e, whakatata mai rā, whakatata mai rā. Hiwa nui, hiwa roa, hiwa pūkenga, hiwa wānanga, hiwa-i-te-Rangi, hiwa-i-te-Rangi. Heke iho rā koe i te kāhui o te rangi, ki runga i tēnei hui huinga tāngata, ka whakamaua kia tīna. Haumi e, hui e. Kia ora. Kei aku nui, kei aku rahi, kei aku rangatira, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou kua hui hui mai ki te whare taonga o te papatonga rewa, ki te whakanui i tēnei wā o Matariki. Nau mai, whakatau mai rā. Ko Sonia Johnson tōku ingoa, no ngā mautere o Hāmoa me Aitutaki, tā lofa, kia orana. Ko au te pauwhakahaere mō te tima hōtaka tūmata nui, ara ko public programs. Kia ora rā. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all here on behalf of Te Papatonga Rewa. I know that today is going to be a really inspiring afternoon. This is our last event for Matariki for 2023, and what a way to end it. Really excited to hear the kōrero from our beautiful rangatahi, but I'm not going to be staying up here too much longer. I have a couple of housekeeping points, so if you need to go to the wharepaku, the toilets, you go back out the doors to Soundings, to the left, you'll see the big whale heart, or the toilets are on the other side of that. In an emergency, our hosts, just want to wave out, our two hosts, we follow their instructions and they'll make sure that we get somewhere safely depending on what the situation is. So look out for them. Lastly, this event is being live streamed, so a big mihi nui to everyone that's online. Kia ora. Mana watia a Matariki. Like I said before, we have an incredible lineup, and I have the honour of introducing our first kai kōrero, who will also be emceeing today, Mataio and Sarah Brown. Tai Malelangi, Mataio Whawhetai, Matt Brown is a New Zealand-born Samoan author and renowned communicator who works to eradicate domestic violence by supporting those who perpetrate violence to heal. Aroha mai. A survivor of family violence and childhood sexual abuse himself, he originally started his domestic violence advocacy work by sharing his story with the men who frequented his busy barbershops to foster vulnerability, healing, and connection. Matt believes his true calling lies in his work to redefine society's view of masculinity and to help end the cycle of domestic violence plaguing families all over the world. For over a decade, Matt has hosted free men's anti-violence support groups from locations like barbershops, construction sites, gang pads, prisons, and Indigenous spaces. He has facilitated multiple programs inside men's and youth prisons and was named a Corrections New Zealand patron in 2020. A New Zealand Māori wahine no Ngāpuhi, no Ngāpuhi me te Raroa, Sarah is a writer and producer who is passionate about the mandate of creating violence-free communities and has worked alongside Matt to redefine the way we communicate about family violence with creativity and innovation. Since 2018, Matt and Sarah have partnered with the New Zealand Ministry of Social Development as ambassadors for their It's Not Okay campaign, and we're funded to develop and launch an app, Inner Boy, to promote accessible healing for Indigenous men. The couple are proud ambassadors for the work of Aviva Families, a family violence service centre in Christchurch, and for MATE, M-A-T-E, a program that sits within a domestic violence research department in Griffith University in Australia. Together, the couple founded She Is Not Your Rehab and launched the concept in Matt's 2019 TEDx talk, He says the movement is an invitation for men to acknowledge their own childhood trauma and to take responsibility for their healing so that they can transform their pain instead of transmitting it on those around them. They released their first book, a New Zealand #1 bestseller, She Is Not Your Rehab, with the goal to encourage intergenerational healing in 2021. Also raised funds and donated 10,000 copies of the book to refuges and all New Zealand prisons, simultaneously launching a successful book club program inside prison. In 2022, they opened the She Is Not Your Rehab art gallery, which hosts the exhibition, Who Is She?, in collaboration with Mr. G, a renowned New Zealand Māori artist. Both Sarah and Matt became members of the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2022 and were awarded a Commonwealth Points of Light Award by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as head of the Commonwealth before she passed. What an amazing duo. Nā runga i tērā, nau mai ki runga i te atamira. Welcome to the stage, Matayo and Sarah Brown and their tama. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Whaia.
Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kākā, ka tangi hoki au. Tihei, mauri ora. Ko te peko te mahuri, te rāte te po te rākau. Tēnā koutou i te whānau, ko pangaru te maunga, ko awaro te awa, ko māmari te waka, ko ngā pui, ko te raroanga iwi, ko ngā te hene te hapu, ko maututi te marae. I te tā o tōku pāpā, ko ai towhi I rawa ko whāmanu o ku tupuna. I te tā o tōku māma, ko pōrau, ko Karen o ku tupuna. Ko Mateo tōku pāpā, ko Sarah tōku māma, ko Oceana rawa, ko Fredo o ku tōhine, ko Angelo tōku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, huri noa te whare, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Kia ora. Well, I'm Angelo's mama.
Talofa lava. I'm Angelo's papa.
And we are very honoured to be here today to share our kōrero with you and a little bit about the mahi that we do.
Alo ingo o taima langi Mateo whawhekai ma ko Brown. Obviously growing up in the further south of this whenua, Christchurch, Otutahi to be exact, not many people could pronounce my name, so Matt Brown stuck. I was born up in Tamaki Makaurau, South Auckland to be exact, Mangele to be exact, 275 to be exact, but I was raised in Otutahi. When my father was released from jail from a long stint, he moved us out of the south to the further south. So who we are, this is whenever anyone asks us who is this kaupapa, who we are a village. There is many of us, obviously our whānau, our three beautiful tamariki up there, but then also my siblings, my dear mum, and also our wider whānau. And so when we talk about this kaupapa of She Is Not Your Rehab, the heart of this kaupapa is this haka here.
To Hiwa-i-te-Rangi, the youngest star in the Matariki cluster, to send our hopes and aspirations for the future to, I contemplate the aspirations that we as the founders of She Is Not Your Rehab have for our whānau, our communities and for Aotearoa, to ultimately be violence-free. Our haka speaks of these aspirations: to heal, to strengthen, to fight for the well-being and prosperity of all people, men, women, and children, and to rid our families of violence and neglect and contemptuous words, so that what remains is right, so that what remains is true and just, and that what remains is love for our people. In 2009, the prominent Māori lawyer Moana Jackson said that the novel Once Were Warriors should have been more appropriately named Once Were Gardeners. By doing so, he argued against the notion that Māori possess a warrior gene to predisposing them to violence. Instead, Jackson maintained that Māori were more likely to have a predisposition for gardening. And more recently, Tina Ngata, a staunch advocate for environmental, Indigenous and human rights, wrote that the truth of the matter is there is no such thing as a genetic disposition towards warfare and violence. There is no warrior gene. Conflict was, as with all people, just one dimension of our complex reality. We are not a warrior race. We are, and always have been, a race of voyagers, scientists, gardeners, lovers, poets, composers, philosophers, artists, orators, mathematicians, dancers, astronomers, builders, and healers. We were peacemakers and keepers as much as warriors, and in many cases more so. The trope of the savage Indigenous man is one that is capitalized upon by media and state in a way that is harmful and diminishing. University of Canterbury senior lecturer Dr. Phil Burrell says, Polynesian masculine identities are constantly evolving, and that certain historical narratives have prioritized particular views of what Polynesian masculinities might be. Polynesian masculine identity has long been accepted as one of physiological differences with strength, speed, and size. And there is a growing need to re-examine what masculine identity means to contemporary Polynesian men. She Is Not Your Rehab is an invitation that myself and my husband extended for Tāne everywhere. That while your childhood trauma was not your fault, your healing now was your responsibility. And the concept of this was launched in Matt's 2019 TED Talk, The Barbershop Where Men Go to Heal. And through multiple mediums, our book, our social media content, our prison programs, our men's therapies groups, and more recently, our newly launched app, Inner Boy, we work to actively seek to explore and redefine what masculine identity means to contemporary Polynesian men and support and normalize the notion that intergenerational trauma is real, but that intergenerational healing is possible in our efforts to reduce the epidemic that is domestic violence. Each year on White Ribbon Day, the day we stand internationally against the prevention of violence towards women, we actively look for ways to engage Tāne. Last year, we decided to curate an art exhibition that could normalise the affirmation of wahine everywhere. We asked this question on social media: if she is not your rehab, then who is she? And we got thousands of submissions from Tāne all over the world. Our exhibition, we decided to collaborate with a prolific and renowned Māori artist named Mr. G from Tauranga Moana. We asked him to come and graffiti the words, part of our submissions that we had selected to be part of this exhibition, over the top of our logo. And reading through all the submissions, we were deeply moved to learn what wahine were to those Tāne in their life. So I just wanted to share a couple with you, and just to kind of illustrate where it's at for so many of our Tāne as they work to really heal the narratives in their own life. So we start with She Is Tapu. She Is Tapu was submitted by two twin rangatahi from Ōtautahi in honour of their mother Tala. Tala lost her life to domestic violence when they were only 5 years old. They wrote for their mama, "Why she is tapu to me is because she is my everything. She is the one who gave me life and put me into this world. I love her with all my heart. She is tapu because I hold her very dear to my heart." His brother wrote, "I say tapu because the value of her is sacred. I say tapu because the value of her as a woman is sacred. I say tapu because she put me into this world, and I say tapu because she is my mama and she is sacred." When we think of this word, it has a similar meaning in 9 Polynesian languages. It speaks of the sacredness of who she is. Other words that we've had submitted included words from inside prisons here in Aotearoa. Hers was written by a brother here in Wellington from Rimataka prison. He wrote, "Women in my life growing up had little or no choices or options. They were options themselves, mainly by abusive males. I know a woman who had no say over herself, so she is hers. She is not my rehab, she is not my anything. She is her everything. Hers to decide for herself, hers to live life her way, hers to speak for herself, hers to walk the way she chooses, hers to wear what she wants, her money, her body, her sex, her no sex, her house, her car, her pets, her way, her style, her size, her life, her choice, hers, not mine." The word bese, Samoan for song. This is also from a brother inside. He wrote, "My baby girl is my bese. I have been inside longer than I have been with her, but she never fails to sing to me every time I call. Daddy, she says, what song do I sing you today? And I always say, one from your heart, my baby. And she laughs and says, my heart and my mouth, silly daddy. And then she sings me the sweetest songs, ones my mother sung me, and sings her while I'm here locked away from them. Her bese is what carries me in the hope that when I get out, I will hear that sweet voice all the time and be the father for her that she deserves." Talanoa, written also by a brother incarcerated. She is Talanoa because Talanoa removes distance. With her, I am drawn in and understood. With her, she understands my process and holds close our conversations. With her, there is a mutual sharing of ideas and dreams. With her, there is closeness, respect, and space. With her, I am finally able to tell my story. And the final word we want to share from our exhibition, Who is She, is whakapapa. She is the giver of life. She is the keeper of our bloodlines. She is the whare tangata that nurtures and shelters our babies. She is the mother of my children. Through her, I am able to share in the love of my sons. I never had a father, yet have learnt my whole life to be one. Yet have yearned my whole life to be one. I want to be able to rewrite the narrative of what fatherhood looks like in my whānau, to be the father I never had. And it is my wife who blessed me with the greatest role of all. So she is whakapapa. And that was written by Phil for his wife, Steph. And so when we think of these words, I think to myself that our tāne are not irredeemable, that actually it's time for us to change the narrative, to be all that we never received, and to heal the cycles of intergenerational trauma and abuse that have plagued us now for generations. It's time for us to heal our family line and be the kinds of parents for our tamariki, for our mokopuna that we haven't received. Why this has mattered to us, not just because of all the mahi and the heart stuff that we do, but also this costs every single person in this country. For us, we look at it like $1 billion problem, a problem that we need to collectively find solutions for. And a report commissioned back in 2014 talked about the cost of child abuse and intimate partner violence in this country, and it was estimated over the last decade it has costed us collectively $80 billion. That number is staggering, but that is what us as a society are paying for, and that can be eradicated. I truly believe this.
So for us, when we think of solutions, I've always been a massive believer the solutions are in our community, and so we need to come up with these solutions together as a collective. For us, having these conversations, early days in my little tin shed in the hood in Ngātahi, where men who didn't look like me, in my city, a very white city, men who didn't look like me, talk like me, or dress like me, yet when I cut their hair, I soon learned that shame, pain, trauma did not discriminate, and family violence did not sleep. Because these men, when they trusted me with their outer appearance, I soon learned the stories and the mama and the shame that they all individually carried. And so this has been the honor of my life to sit with men. And so our next venture for us as community people was to create this online tool called Inner Boy. You know, this was birthed during lockdown, the 6 weeks that we're all stuck at home with each other. Joy, joy, joy. You know, I jumped on national television with the Women's Refuge CEO, Dr. Ange Jury, and I confidently, something took over me, I confidently said on national television, you know, if there's any brother out there struggling with his mental health or struggling with violence or hurting himself, please reach out to me. I promise I'll respond. Next minute, thousands and thousands of tāne across the motu messaged me. I was up till 3 o'clock every morning during lockdown, responding back to every person. And what really broke my heart was receiving a message from a 12-year-old boy who messaged me saying, Matt, I seen you on television last night. You said that you help men who struggle with anger. Can you please help me help my dad to stop him from abusing my little brother? When I read that message, my heart broke because it is not our rangatahi's responsibility to regulate adult emotions. It is not their responsibility. And so we jumped online, tried to find some help for this rangatahi. Everything online was, you know, it cost money, it wasn't accessible, it was outdated, it was whitewashed, it did not resonate with our people. And so we came up with Inner Boy. Inner Boy was, the concept was birthed from the many conversations I would have with these men in my chair. You know, men who wore suits to men who wore gang patches or had the latest Jordans. You know, behind these facades, behind these material things, sat an inner child who longed to be seen, who longed to felt belonging and connection. And so I honor this kaupapa with a dear friend of mine. I found out he received cancer about 2 years ago. And when I found out, I wrote him a poem, and it goes like this. A letter to my brother. When you told me that you wish you could tell me everything, but you couldn't possibly because it would test even the limits of my love, my heart was still my brother. So still, so quiet. You said, bro, if I told you, you'd walk away just like everyone else. But if only you knew that when I think of why I even bother at all, I think of men like you. If only you knew that it's the shame that you push down that whispers in your ear telling you I'll leave if I knew. Because if the truth whispered, it would tell you that nothing you could ever tell me would change my mind about you. Because I see you, my uso. And when I see you, I don't see the gangster. I see a little boy sleeping on the bed springs because your father deemed you unworthy to sleep on a mattress. I've always seen him. So when I cut your hair, I'm cutting that little boy's hair, and with every snip, I'm telling him he's worthy. You are worthy, little one. Snip, snip. You are worthy of belonging. Snip, snip. You are worthy of healing. Snip, snip. You are worthy to be known. Snip, snip. You are worthy to be loved. Snip, snip. You are worthy to exist. You epitomize the reason I do this at all. When you come and sit in my chair, my uso, I feel you exhale. I exhale too. And suddenly you are no longer in my chair. You are lying on those bed springs in a dark room, and I'm sitting on the end of your bed with you. I see your tears, but I don't hear them. You weren't allowed to cry back then, but you can cry with me now, little one. I'm honored to hear your tears. Sometimes they just need a witness. So I'll sit there in the dark with you as long as it takes until you have the courage to push them out. I can smell the urine also. I know it's just your way of trying to protect yourself. I'm sorry you had to stay like that all night. I'm here now, and I promise we'll clean it up together. I'll sit up with you here all night just so you know I'm not going anywhere. It will always be because of men like you with little boys inside of you longing to be seen that I consider this work the honor of my life. To cut your hair and see you beyond what the world sees, well, it's a perspective that atua, that love must surely have of each of us. So I'll continue to be my father's barber. I thank you humbly for this gift, Mauso. I thank you for letting me see you. I thank you for trusting me with your pain. I thank you for allowing me to sit with you in all of it. You see, here we have a brother, when he came into my little garden shed 15 years ago, my whole neighborhood questioned my integrity. Bro, you know the shit this guy's putting on our streets, it's destroying our whānau, it's destroying our communities. Yet here I chose a job where my job was to cut hair and serve. And as I served this man, I soon learned of a boy who was introduced to crime at the age of 5. Yelling, Mom, I'm hungry. Boy, jump in the car. Took him down to the closest dairy and said, you run in there and you grab whatever you want. A boy who walked in at the age of 8 to his mum lying on the couch, overdosed with a needle in her arm. He was then shipped to his father's house at the age of 10. And his father found him too much to handle, so his father dropped him off to the closest boys' home. And then Mausa was shipped from foster home to foster home in Ōtautahi. And he was sexually abused by every foster parent he had. I won't go into too much detail about when we think of intergenerational trauma, you know, people are not born monsters. No man that I have ever met in prison, in the barbershop, ever wakes up wanting to terrify and threaten his children and his partner. This all stems from trauma, from pain, from shame. And when we think of holding spaces and helping these men heal, because, you know, we don't help him heal, he will go on to the next person, and the cycle continues until we have the courage as a collective, as a community, to sit with our people and have these courageous conversations without shame, but meeting them with empathy and compassion. And so it's an honor to sit with men. And so this app, I'm only plugging this in because it's we just dropped it in the last month, but it's free. So if you have any brother, any tane, any man in your life, 30 minutes for 30 days, we wanted to make it sizable. You know, I've asked the questions to all the men. My research comes from the barbershop. You know, what would resonate with you? What will connect with you? And men always respond. We don't want the psychobabble jumble. We want it plain and simple and straight to the heart. We don't need to read your academic, you know, profiles and your, you know, what you've achieved. We want to know that you connect with us and that you're real. And so for 30 minutes, for 30 days, free therapy, self-therapy. This is not here to replace therapy, but this is here to accompany our tane, our communities in their healing journey. Because I'm a massive believer, when you connect and heal the inner child, you heal the tane, the man in front of us. And so Inner Boy, you won't be able to find it on the App Store yet because it's still in development. So just go into your web browser and just type in innerboy.nz.
So the heart of our message really is about changing the narrative, and for us it's about being the kind of parents that we didn't receive ourselves and providing for our children the opportunities we didn't have. And really just this work, this kaupapa is honestly just showing a window to another way of life. It's saying, hey, you know what, it's possible to come from families like ours and have a different kind of life. And so I just want to say, ngā mihi nui to Te Papa for having us today. It's an honour to stand alongside the many that are going to share this day with you. But also just it's an opportunity for us to collectively, at this time of year, think about the aspirations we have for our whānau, for our community, and for Aotearoa on a whole. Ngā mihi nui, kia ora.
So, you know, it is wonderful that we are here celebrating a national holiday. Aotearoa do it first. That brings Mātauranga Māori to the forefront, reminding us of the intrinsic connection that we have to the environment that surrounds us. The events for this weekend have continued to highlight the three national themes of Matariki: remembering the past, celebrating the present, and planning for the future. Over the last 2 days, Te Papa has been honouring the past and celebrating the present, and today we turn to Hiwa-i-te-Rangi, the youngest star in the Matariki cluster, who we send our hopes and aspirations for the future to. This is not the usual New Year's resolution where we're focused on what we want as an individual, but more about what our aspirations are for our whānau, our communities, and the environment. So this brings me to these four incredible rangatahi who will be presenting today. They were invited to share their hopes, aspirations, insights, and any challenges that they think should be brought to this platform. There is no set format whānau, so that's your disclaimer and trigger warning. The floor is open to what they bring in any shape or form. So, to introduce our first speaker, Ainganga le Whili Whipuleai Tapuai. Whili is an award-winning poet, youth advocate, and Indigenous environmental activist, a proud Samoan and South Aucklander. She has served her community since she was 15 and currently studies law and environmental science. With a passion for climate justice in the Pacific, educational equity and decolonisation, her work has been to COP27, the United Nations SDG sessions, and is taught in schools across Aotearoa. In 2020, she was awarded the Woman of Influence Young Leader, Sunpic's Pacific People's Emerging Young Leader, and Pacific Cooperation Youth Advocacy Awards. Whew. In 2021, she was a finalist for the New Zealand of the Year Local Hero Award. Whānau, can we please put our hands together for Ainganga le Whili Whipuleai Tapuai.
If I were to ask you to point me in the direction of where the real world is, I want you to think about where you would take me. And while you're thinking, I'm going to reach back a couple years and share a poem that I wrote when I was 15 years old. This poem is called 275 Love Letters to Southside. Auckland and South Auckland are not the same place. When I realized that no place outside of Southside would want to pronounce my name properly, I tried to scrape it off their tongues. And yet all they did was spit on us instead and still. Didn't a white teacher at my South Auckland school tell us we are nothing more than typical South Auckland crap? Haven't my ancestors' screams been muffled between textbook pages? Aren't I lucky I wasn't born when the dawns were raided still? My South Auckland. Red and blue runs through your streets in the forms of bandanas, flags, and flashing lights. So much so that everyone chooses to forget what the color of our sun looks like. Shine flashlights in our brown boys' eyes so much that I can never forget what the color of our suns look like. While our daughters become mothers to their siblings so young, while their parents work shifts at night. And the media won't talk about that, but they love to talk about any recorded street fight. I guess everyone doesn't have the time to ask why, but has the time to point fingers. And I spent my years growing up in schools where I had more friends with no lunch than friends who were eating. I'd hear them say they expect us to buy Chromebooks and we can barely afford the tuck shop food. More times than I've heard a school bell. You see, joking about your pain is a rite of passage in these South Auckland schools. Because it's not like these education systems teach us how to deal with it. And still, isn't the reality of our lives to you just politics? Ponsonby is a memory that I don't remember. Driving through Ponsonby is like looking at old faded photos that I don't remember living through. Just another one of a deleted scene from a movie where we got another chance. A chance of a happier, healthier brown community. Ponsonby is your cousin who forgot their roots so their branches grew away from you. But in South Auckland, I guess family is still family. So when Ponsonby shows up uninvited to the family function, I guess I kissed them awkwardly on the cheek. But ever since Ponsonby left my mother for a white woman, I expect them to say that I am the splitting image of my mom. But they never do. And I could stand here, drop my slang, fix my posture, pull the moana out of my lungs so you can breathe easier. But if you saw me on TV, if you saw me while I walk down my streets, aren't I just another one of those fobby, ghetto, ratchet South Auckland kids? I didn't get to choose, but even if I did, I would choose this and all that comes with it still. Sweet, Seki. So that poem, I wrote it 5 years ago. And at the time that I wrote it, I was just a poet. I had not yet started doing anything that could be labeled as activism. And I realized as I was watching my peers around me that our perception of the real world was a lot different to the world that we were getting ready to go into as youth. And so if you were to take me to where the real world is to you, would it be universities? Would it be a lecture hall? Would it be a bank? What does the real world look like, and what is it supposed to look like? for the youth in our country who don't get born into a level playing field. And so I think about this world that I was born into. I think about the trajectory of my life. And I think about a lot of the critiques that I got at the time that I was going into national TV, I was going to conferences, and I was speaking about how important it is to make sure that our communities come into these rooms with us. And so I'd carry my community of South Auckland, my community of Samoa, of the Pacific, of low decile, low-income youth, into these spaces and realize that there wasn't really much space for us anyways. And people would say in NZ Herald comment sections, in debates, that I didn't know what I was talking about because I didn't know what the real world looked like. And so it led me to wonder, what does the real world look like? Is it having a job? Is it being in the workforce? Because my story, when it comes to that, is that I started working when I was 6 years old. I cut onions as a fruit clipper for 10 years until I turned 16 and I got a proper job. And so did that mean that I didn't know what the real world looked like? Did the real world look like big fancy seminars and being able to talk in fancier words so people can understand us? I realized that I was able to do that, but it was leaving a lot of people out of the room. It was leaving out the people that needed to hear my words the most, my peers, the kids younger than me, at the same primary and the same intermediate that I went to, with wide eyes, wide eyes, small hands, and big dreams, who are often told that in order to make it in the real world, you had to forget about what made you who you are. You had to forget about the people in your community who raised you, and that it was shameful to be from South Auckland. You had to strip that back in order to be someone of value. And this confused me, because to me, my real world looked like onion fields. It looked like people in our community who worked night shifts, who did things to make sure that they made the ends meet for their families. It looked like my friends who became mothers so young to children that weren't theirs. It looked like every hero in our hood who didn't get the celebration or the accolades, but still went out into the community and did the good because it was good and because it was right. And so if you were to take me to where the real world is to you, I want you to think about whether that world is expandable enough for everyone in Aotearoa, whether that world includes youth who aren't born with certain privileges that everyone assumes they have for being young. So when we get these young activists, we get these change makers, there's little kids with wide eyes, small hands, and big dreams grow up and step into these rooms. I want us to expand our worldviews to include them, instead of making them shrink themselves to fit in. Because the truth is, the lived experiences of youth in this country is a wealth of knowledge that does not get acknowledged or validated enough. They may not know everything in the world, but they know what they know is that they know what they've been through. And for them to harness that, for them to be able to step into arenas and use that to make change, that's a powerful, powerful thing. If we continue this cycle of not looking at the patterns of our own lives, of maybe who you were as a child, that you felt you had to strip back to grow up and fit into this real world we talk about, please open your mind and think about what it would be like if you didn't have to do that. Just because we've had to doesn't mean our future generations do too. In order for us to build this world that we care about so deeply, in order for us as a country to be able to move forward with dignity and pride and not have to leave behind generations of children, whether that be to institutionalized violence, institutionalized racism, whether that be child labor, whether that be all the myriad of problems that exist in this country that our youth go through, it doesn't have to go on any longer. And the quicker that ends is when we look to ourselves and end those cycles so that our children don't continue them. And so this Matariki, I invite you to think about what your real world looks like. and I pose a different question. If I were to ask you where the center of your world is, does it look the same as that real world? Is the center of your world where you stand? Is the center of your world in your community, with your people, whether that be your family, your extended friends, wherever you whakapapa to? Why is that not enough for this real world to expand and include all of us? And so I bring that up because in the work that I do with environmentalism, with climate change in the Pacific, I had the chance to travel to Greece last year, and I had a discussion with a lecturer around the prospects of what climate change looks like in the Pacific. And I found pretty quickly that often in the world we are seen as victims here in the Pacific. We are seen as casualties in the fight against climate change. We are seen as a major con in a larger conquest for power. And so if the center of our world is not where we stand, then where is it? If the real world, it does not look like our own centers, does not expand to include everyone else's, then what does it look like? To be able to stand away from where your center is, to go out into the world and take that mana with you, is what it means to make the change that our children deserve. It's what it means to make sure that we are continuing the legacy of our ancestors. And so, as I spoke to this lecturer, he spoke of our Pacific Islands, of our Pacific region, as tiny dots not worth saving, not worth humanizing. She didn't see us in her real world. But at the end of the day, it's more important that we do. I stood there and I tried to trace my steps back to our ocean on the other side of the world. And I realized that maybe we're going to find people like that. Maybe we're going to go out into these arenas and find that they can't expand their worldviews to put us into them. But if we're able to trace our steps back to where we are centered, to what our world looks like, to our youth who are breaking the molds and redefining what the real world can be, then we are going one step further in the fight for change. And so I hope this Matariki, we are all able to trace our steps back to the center of our worlds and let that build a world worth living in for our tamariki. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ainga Whili, Te Puleai, Tapuai. How's that whānau? Nei. Mean. I've always admired Whili and her mahi, especially her strength, her courage to speak up about topics that in my generation were foreign. You know, we were busy playing PlayStation and watching Tupac videos. So to see her from our community stand up and speak, you know, for things that are important that we were so ignorant to is amazing. And so thank you, sis. Okay, to our next speaker, Quack, Pirihi. He said quack, but it's Quack. Quack is a rangatahi Māori from Takahiwai with whakapapa to Ngāpuhi, Ngāti Wai, Ngāti Porou, and Ngāti Whātua or Kaipara. With a background in youth work, they work across many different kaupapa that sees to support the success of whānau Māori with a specific focus on tangata takatapuhi, founding Mana Aniwaniwa early in 2023 to prevent and end suicide with queer and takatapuhi communities. Quack enjoys mobilising whānau to stand in their mana motuhake and restore tino rangatiratanga. They also use social platforms to drive support for pro-Māori initiatives and practice to share their journey with activism and advocacy. Whānau, can we please put our hands together for Quack?
Hello. Oh, there it is. I was needing to cough, but I didn't want to do it during Whili's kōrero. Ka pai. Are these chairs heavy? No. Aroha mai te papa, ruining your stage. Kia ora koutou. This was made last night at 11 p.m. In the Babyhauser Hotel whilst my wahine was sleeping watching The Office, because I'm not good at managing my time. Take my shoes off. I called this kōrero, we are radical rangatahi because you are killing our earth. I don't know who I'm angry at when I wrote that kōrero. I think I just seen colonizer Luxon talking about boot camps for rangatahi Māori as a way to end violence within our communities. But I reckon if you're here in the audience, then you're not a National Party supporter by default. So let's get started. Ona te tiriti, any government workers in the building. Kia ora, moving on. That's myself in the water. That's me in front of the Royal Research Ship James Cook off the coast of Costa Rica. I know Hemi Hita, my beautiful friend, is watching this at home. Kia ora, Hemi. This took place in March, earlier this year. There's me with the Tino Rangatiratanga flag. And then I found out after I returned home that two of my aunties, or two of our whaia in my whānau, are buried at my urupa in Takahiwai. I didn't even know that. That's whakapapa to the world. James Cook, what a fucked up name for a research ship attempting to destroy our moana. Trigger warning, swearing, yelling, sitting uncomfortably. Let's get through this presentation. Ko waio, a visual description. I am 6'7". No, I'm 5'9". I have white-ish skin. It's not summer yet. I have no hat on. I've got a black overshirt with one of the Te Papa Matariki pins, the one from Matariki. I'm wearing a tihate that was created by an artist called Hamuira. He's on Instagram, Make Aotearoa Native Again, repping a kaupapa called Sunday Blessings, which is a kaupapa up in Tāmaki, aiming to end food poverty, and they do a lot of dinner service for our street whānau. Up in Tāmaki, I'm wearing brown cargo shorts because they're back in fashion, and white socks that I'm going to try not show you the bottom of because I don't know if this stage is paru. Moving on, my whakawhawha, ko te tangi o te mani nei kui ia. Ko te ingoa o tēnei manu ko tu kaia ia. Te ingoa e horapa ana te maunga kakatarahai o manaia, te uri ahau o te maunga nei, ara o patu harekeke, Ngāti Wai, Ngāti Piro, Ngāpui, Ngāti Whatua o Kaipara, tēnā koutou katoa. I come from the Nori North, te tai tōkero, but I also share whakapapa with my partner, which is common. Moving on, my pronouns, they, them, but if we're talking in te reo Māori, then ia. And if English isn't your first language, then I couldn't give a shit. Yeah, bigger issues to worry about. Krakpirihi is my chosen name. I got called Raki Raki by Scotty Morrison on an interview a little while ago, which is a kupe Māori for duck. Moving on, my birth name is Quade Taylor Fletcher Pirihi. That was given by my mum. I never liked my name growing up, and when my mum passed away a couple of years ago, I chose to take off that metaphorical korowai of mamai, gave myself a real out-the-gate name that I think reflects who I am. I feel like when you hear Quack, you're like, what the fuck did they just say? She was actually going to call me Mick Quaid. So, ngā mihi, Mum, but Quack Pirihi. I'm 21 years old. I live in Otahuhu. I was going to say the best part of South Auckland because Philly reckons Mangere is the best part of South Auckland, but South Auckland is the best place in Auckland. Mauri ora, moving on. I work in community spaces. My partner's Jax. Can we all say kia ora, Jax? They're right there in the blue, kia ora, recording me. And my favourite colour is kakariki. And if I was to do one last waiata tautoko for the rest of my life, it would be hutia tirito. We've been doing puria nei at mahi, and I'm puria nei out. I thought it was really important to share my progress of how I am today, where I've got into, because as a rangatahi who doesn't have much tertiary experience, when I stand in these spaces, rangatahi are frequently asking, how do you get that? How do you do that? Well, how do you learn that? So I'm going to take us back to high school. Year 9, Year 10, One Tree Hill College. My teacher was Mr. Singh. Shout out to Mr. Singh. Then I started working at Macca's. I actually lied about how old I was so I could start working 2 months earlier. Would spend all my money on really important things like Kai and Kmart and all those good things that aren't good for the environment. Year 12, Year 13, did I get NCA? Cow. Am I still working at Macca's? I worked there for about a year after high school, and then, da-da, my mum died. Can we all say, aroha my mum? Yeah, sorry, dead mum jokes, we love it. I then started working at a kura called Panama Road School. I actually lied in my interview and on my CV because I really wanted to work in a kura. I thought I was going to be a teacher, but I ended up working in an alternative education program called Tipu Whare, which is still running at Panama Road. It's in Ōtāhuhu off Panama Road. Moving on, I really liked youth work, and then I started TikTok and Instagram. I thought I was going to be a really cool storyteller. Carl, talk shit about the National Party? But as we know, educating our whānau about what to look out for in the political space and who to vote for is storytelling. So I'm a storyteller. I think because I use they, them pronouns and I was using a lot of, I was sharing a lot of my experience with Te Ao Māori on TikTok, I was offered to be in this campaign called Beyond Binary Code, which is a kaupapa by Spark, co-created with rainbow communities to make the internet a more inclusive space for people who don't conform to male or female binaries. And also, Netflix doesn't need to know what's in Aotearoa. They don't need to know what type of stuff you're working with down there. So it's also talking about companies and data sovereignty and all those long things that are hard to understand. I then started using the name Quack properly. Chuck it on my invoice, chuck it on my emails. It felt really nice, it felt really flash. I was still shy up until like a year ago to introduce myself as Quack. Hiwa-i, moving on. I then started working with the Ministry of Education. At first, they wanted me to promote the Rangatahi Māori youth panel, which provides feedback on various things throughout NCA. And I got to call them out on my Instagram, and they paid me to do it. So, kia ora, Ministry of Education. And then I started working in the NCA Pathways panel, which I'm still understanding and on a journey with. Moving on, I did a campaign with Burnet Foundation Aotearoa, previously known as Ending HIV New Zealand. I was on their Spots campaign where I got to swear and make a bunch of cool Māori jokes and got paid for that as well. And then I started working for Ngāti Tamoho Trust after I left Panama Road School. Oh, there's a laser. Boom, boom, boom. Ngāti Tamoho Trust is a Māori organisation out in Karaka, out in Tāmaki, and I was their rangatahi lead. I don't know why I got put in charge of all those rangatahi, but it was out the gate. Moving on, halfway throughout the year, when this started to pop off, I put my hand up to be on the Rainbow Youth Executive Board, which is a queer and takatapui organisation who provide services to young rainbow, amazing takatapui people. And then 2 months later, I was like, I got this in the bag, so I did another board, which is Auckland Pride, not realising that soon my capacity would be dead and I'm overworked and underpaid in all these spaces. I think that's all I wanted to share. And now I'm in this space where I get to work in a couple different sectors. I tried to categorise them last night as mokopuna, because we're all mokopuna, but with a slight focus on rangatahi, community work, and then my own healing. I think it's really important if we're going to give 9 to 5 to if we're going to give 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to an organisation to make their money or to deliver outcomes, then how much time are you giving to yourself and healing? We've heard a lot of kōrero about intergenerational healing, and that's what I'm trying to get into. I wanted to clarify before I got into this, though, that I don't have my shit together. I just got a notice from IRD saying that I owe like $1,000. I've got afterpay. Meant to be traveling overseas next week. I don't know how I'm going to get to the airport. I don't have my shit together, and I think it's really important when rangatahi see other rangatahi on stage to know that you don't have to be polished or have everything together. It's really cliche, but I just wanted to chuck that disclaimer in. My favourite mahi in the mokopuna space is doing activism and yelling at old white rich people on how they're fucking ruining our planet, as well as mobilising rangatahi is really cool. Space for me to mahi. And moving into Hapuri, the rainbow and takatapui scene, I don't know if you can tell by the way I'm sitting, but that is my community. I love liberating our communities. No, I take that back. I love helping to liberate our communities alongside whānau, which is what Manaani Waniwa was created for, which Matua Matt spoke about before, as well as porn literacy is a huge kaupapa that's starting to be spoken about in Aotearoa, doing some mahi with rangatahi ora, te rauora. Moving on to whakaora, this is what I think healing looks like for me at this stage. Learning te reo, I can do so many things with this. Being a kaitiaki of myself in my own tinana, having those hard conversations when I get upset or frustrated, and unpacking that and not lashing out wherever you've had like a disagreement with someone, and being gentle with my tinana is a really big thing as well. So I want to position this kōrero in 3 separate ways. I want to talk about my maunga and what cements me in my practice as an activist. I swear you hold up the Tino Rangatiratanga flag and the media calls you an activist. It's so much more than that. When we talk about awa, what sustains me, what are the barriers that I'm experiencing, as well as puna, what future I envision for Aotearoa. I then want to spend the rest of my time sharing the mic with other rangatahi, but we'll talk about that later. So first of all, what grounds me in my maunga is my whānau. From right to left, my beautiful nephew Mātaiata, who is so camera ready, just too much mana. Then I have my older brother Dylan. Oh, it feels rude to point. Denim is my oldest sister Georgia. I'm going to say oldest for all of them because I'm the pōtiki if you couldn't tell. Then my sister Carla in the middle, and then me with my half neck tāmoko done because it was too sore and I had to tap out halfway through. Kia ora Maya Inc. and Papakura. Then my twin sister, I'm a twin. Oh my God. She's older than me by 2.5 minutes. But we don't need to tell anyone that. And then my sister Shay on the end. There is a pepe missing, Iri Hāpeti, my newest addition to our whānau. My niece is very beautiful. She likes me, I'm her favourite. What's the gender neutral for uncle sibling? Uncle, I think it's nibbling, which is real weird. Anyways, what a ugly Pākehā word. But then these are some of my more whānau. My bestie at the top there, Charm. I haven't seen her in ages because she's so busy, but apparently we live together. And then Mama Shah in the middle-ish to the right. She's a beautiful manawahine who's currently living in so-called Australia, doing amazing work with their tamariki there. And then Lulu Lala, lawyer, they all got so much knowledge. I learned from them, but you should see how dirty our group chat messages are. But we're all polished on the outside, and then obviously me, of course. What grounds me in my mahi is whenua and the notion that if no one's going to protect it, then, or if we don't protect it, then who will? That's on the left a photo of my partner Jax on the coast where we spent the last week, and I got mosquito bites, so I've like got plasters covering up my mosquito bites. They're not even that bad. I just am realizing out loud that I've been conditioned to think that evidence of you being in te taia was dirty or paru. Rip them off. And then I've got me and my best friend, part-time flatmate Charm, up there in Takahiwai, where we raided my auntie's kete collection. Pia Māori. This is a series that I created last year in my whare when we were moving in, about moving home and what my reconnection journey with Te Ao Māori has looked like. It hasn't been perfect. I'm still not the most confident fella to introduce himself with their whakapapa and their pēpiha, but we're on that haerenga. And I'm slowly moving from putting organisations at the forefront of why I do my mahi to putting the whenua or rangatahi or Te Ao Māori at the forefront, which is a very fascinating journey when we were living in a colonised New Zealand. Rangatahi Māori, these are a bunch of cool rangatahi that we did the pawn kaupapa with Te Rauora. That was us at the Redwoods Tree Walk. It's really cool. I've got the brightest jacket because I'm the brightest star. And this is a bunch of rangatahi at the Rainbow Youth card making for Auckland Pride March earlier this year, where we walked down the road, got heaps of good beeps. It's really cool. Where's my one? There. Rangatahi moa pōpō deserve gender-affirming healthcare. So that's what I'm grounded in. It's not an active thing where I sit down and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm really passionate about. I just try to always refer to those things. I think it's quite difficult to practice indigenously when you're living in their colonised Aotearoa. But I wanted to emphasise those are the things that ground me. Now, my awa and what sustains me, panic. The world's facing a huge climate crisis and we don't see much action from these governments. We see the National Party caring more about signs than they do about the mokopuna of the country that they're meant to serve. And it's buzzy because that same fella tried to trademark the kupu kia ora when he was the CEO of Air New Zealand, so I don't know what his kaupapa is. But panic, if we don't look after our rangatahi, who will? And that's what drives me to keep doing my mahi. Also humility. That was my first tamoko there. I thought it would be a piece of cake. Kao. Very mamai. But look at the background. That's my Incan papakura. And the neck tamoko, same as well. I thought I'd be a piece of cake. Had to tap out halfway through. The reason I have those on there is because I walked into it not thinking it would be scary. Walked out wishing I hadn't have done it, and it was really fucking sore. I encapsulate those types of memories I equate those types of memories to getting growled by the auntie when you're at a marae to like sit down or shut up or you've done something wrong. And that humility, that openness to being corrected is what sustains my journey, because if you're not getting growled at by the auntie, or the auntie isn't even in the same room as you, then what the fuck are you doing? Wonder. A lot of my Instagram posts and TikToks are made out of, I wonder what would happen if I spoke shit about the National Party today. I wonder what would happen if I spoke on this kōrero. Would it be positive? Would it be negative? Sometimes I make a piece of content, turns out to be bad, and I delete it, and I get growled at by all my cousins and aunties in the TikTok DMs. But that's what sustains me, curiosity and finding solutions with community to different problems that we're facing. That sounded real flash and polished. Where we are going, and Aotearoa, I wrote this at midnight, we're going to learn together. Where are we going? In Aotearoa that honours Te Tiriti and looks after all of its people. I don't know why Pākehā assume that when we talk about honouring Te Tiriti, it doesn't include them, because they're equal partners. We're not trying to drag them down to lift us up. We're just trying to get on the same fucking pedestal. But that's what in Aotearoa that I would like to see, specifically built in collaboration with rangatahi Māori at the forefront, which is the protection of taonga. I don't remember the slide, so we're going to move on actually. The way I see those goals occurring is through a half-decent political party that doesn't dog whistle, resources for whānau to raise kaitiaki and to live indigenously, and resources for radical rangatahi to lead, which is why I really like this kaupapa and being able to talk with very little censorship or those types of things. Kia ora. But my wero for you fellas is to think about what your maunga awa and puna is. What cements you in your mahi, what sustains your mahi, and where is it going? If we're working a 9 to 5 and not getting any outcomes for our whānau Māori, then could we be spending our time doing something different? If your maunga isn't looking abundant, then how can you shift your priorities? Do we need to have a 9 to 5? Could you call in sick tomorrow to spend more time with your partner because you haven't seen them in ages? Don't tell mahi that you're calling in sick to spend time with your partner. Anyways, moving on. That's our wero. Ignore that one. And now I want to highlight some amazing rangatahi Māori. When I say kia ora blank, you are going to say kia ora blank their name with me. Kia ora cham. Kia ora cham. Cham is a beautiful rangatahi Māori from Ngāti Wairere, Tainui, Ngāpuhi, Ngāti Pikiao and Whakatohea. She wore red bands to her law admission when she got admitted to the bar, and she got the bro to draw like tāmoko designs on it. She does mahi toi. Check her out over here. If you want to take a photo, I can pause. Take a screenshot instead. This is another beautiful rangatahi, Charlie Thomas. I don't actually think they're 24. So ignore that one. He comes from Ngāpuhi and he's a takatapui artist working in the conservation space. He's actually heading to South Georgia in like a little while, which is on the coast of Costa Rica, which is really cool. I love seeing rangatahi Māori doing really cool things outside of Aotearoa to look after our whenua. His favourite bird is an albatross. I was told to say that. This is my friend Whetu, who was leading the porn mahi that we were doing with the Te Rauora. She's also a hypnotherapist. I find it really crack up. She introduces herself as a Te Arawa princess in a Ngāpuhi taniwha. Lady ora. Her passion lies in empowering future generations to thrive, and she does that really well. We sit in an expert advisory group with children and young people working on Te Ao Ririkura, which my friend Sonia, kia ora Sonia, we do mahi in that space together as well. This is my friend Alice that I met about 3 days ago, who works in the engineering space and is passionate about elevating Māori in that space. Check her out on Instagram. All these things will be in the live stream later, te iwi. Moving on, this is my beautiful friend Hayley. She comes from Kerala, and she also sits with me in that expert advisory group, does a bunch of beautiful mahi. She's a keen collaborator. She said if you've got mahi, then go reach out to him. Mauri ora, email over there, got the flash, date of birth, moving on. This is my friend Huia. She was the cow in a kaupapa that was here a little while ago, but I forgot the name. Whaia Sonia, do you remember what the name of the kaupapa was? Cow? There was a cow, and it was in the marae. Yeah, what was it called? Taku Waimarie? Ah, she was the cow. And she did te aroha, but she said moo, 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 moo. Moo, 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 moo. Aye. She's an actor, singer, rapper, magician, and breakdancer. I think she's only an actor, but I thought I'd throw her in the deep end. If you're looking for a breakdancer, hit Huia up. This is my friend Hamuera. If you recognize that logo, it's because it's on my tihate. He's the owner, creative director, of Make Aotearoa Native Again, which doesn't just belong to Hamuera, but belongs to all of us. Professional artists, professional talk shit, professional haututu alongside myself. When he calls out like the National Party and acts on Instagram, he like tags their personal account, so it goes to their DMs. Unapologetically Māori, Scuts Deluxe. This is Nate Wilborn. You would have seen the anti-co-governance fella. I don't know what his stupid name is, but that fella doing hui around the motu. Nate was a rangatahi who went up to one of the hui and got in because he passes as Pākehā, because he's Pākehā, and then he stood up and he was like, you're racist, and he got kicked out, and it was a really cool video. But he's also a photographer. If you want to see more about him or his story, then check him out. He's got a LinkedIn. I don't know what LinkedIn was till I'm 19, so that's an achievement in itself. This is my beautiful friend Afi. She is a first-year law student at the University of Auckland, does a bunch of mahi with Inside Out, also a volunteer with Sunday Blessings. Got a tāmoka at Te Matatini. I'm jealous that I didn't win. I thought that was cool to flex. And has the most beautiful long skirts that I've ever seen in my life. Also does mahi with the Ministry of Education. We're getting to the end whānau. This is my friend Hariata. We collaborated on a project a while ago called Te Mauri o Te Takatapuitanga, which was my first art activation project up in Tāmaki, self-declared icon, and has the most gentle ahua that's guided by cheekiness. I think I'm the opposite, and I'm gentle, cheeky, guided by... No, I'm just cheeky, full stop, no gentle. But kia ora Hariata. Next one, Hemi Hita. If you're watching, kia ora Hemi. We jumped in front of the ship together off the coast of Costa Rica. They work as the deep sea mining lead for Greenpeace Aotearoa, kia ora. Also talk shit on Twitter. I'm friends with a lot of talk shits, but they actually do the mahi to back it up. And that's me. I don't know how to end. I did an interview yesterday, and they were like, just end the interview however you would. And I said, sure, but I don't say sure normally. I want to thank the sponsors. Do we have sponsors? Te Papa, my tupuna, God, if I believed in God. There's a new waiata that I'm learning, Matariki. I don't believe in God, and I don't like waiata that are religious, but I really like the beat. And my last fun fact I'll leave you with is I wanted to walk out on the stage to Hit 'Em Up by Tupac, but me and my friend Philly decided that it wasn't appropriate. Tēnā koutou, tūnā koutou katoa.
You're good. Another round of applause for Quack. Ngā mihi uso. Thank you for your kōrero, your story, your passion. Okay, whānau, how we doing? Our bums all right? 2 down, 2 to go. Our next speaker, Te Kōrero Parata. Returned from study at Victoria University in Wellington to apprentice under his father, Hori Parata, in the tikanga of working in te taiao and with taonga species, tohora, kiore, and kauri. He also returned home to continue his learning under Te Warihi Hetaraka in Whakairo at the Hihi-Awa Cultural Centre, where he has been learning since he was 13. Whānau, put your hands together for Te Kōrero.
Tēnā tātou katoa, ko Te Kōrero Robert Parata a tōku ingoa. He pō ai Pākehā tēnei, Moya Armstrong, mai i ngā whānau Armstrong, Stockdale, Munro. Armstrong, Stockdale me Brown. He tama tono tēnei a Hori Parata, mai i ngā whānau Parata, Munro and Mahanga. I whānau mai au i one rahi, ki te tauwhanga reipai, ki te whangarei te Tiringa Brawa, ko Manaia te Maunga, ko Pātaua te Awa, ko Ngāti Waia tētahi o ngā iwi, ko Korora, Takapari, me Tuairiki i ngā hapu. Me mihi ana ki ngā maunga tukomaha o tēnei rohe, Ki te whanganui atara, ki ngā iwi, ki ngā hapu, ngā mana i te whenua, nōku te honore, hei tū ki konei. E mihi ana ka tika ki te whare, ki tēnei whare o Papa Tongarewa, e mihi ana ki ngā kaimahi. Rātou mai e whakarite ana, ki mua, ki roto, ki wainga, e huna ana, ki muri i ngā raini. E ki ana ko koutou te toto o te whare, e whakamahana ana te korowai manaaki, kia haumaru, kia pai, mārire, o mātou noho ki roto i tēnei whare. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Nō reira, tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto. Tuia te muka tangata, ka rongo te ao, ka rongo te pō, tihei mauriora. Ka huri ki te reo e mohio ai te nuinga. Like I said, my name is Te Kōrero Robert Parata. Moya Armstrong is my mother, and Hori Parata is my father. I was born in Onerahi, Whangarei. Some months before I was born, a Bridie's or Broodie's whale stranded out in the Whangarei Heads, Te Whara Beach Cove. He was a 54 feet long bull killed by ship strike. Dad was looking for a kauri tree at the time, for a waka, for our people. And when he came across this tuakana, he says it looked like a long kauri trunk laid upon the rocks. And so he named the whale Kōrero. My mother was hapu at the time with me, and so it was decided that I'd be named Te Kōrero in recognition of that event for our iwi. Also, it turned out I was named after a whale that was named after the tree. My upbringing involved numerous occasions of going from beach to offshore island to Kōrero, and to others, from hapu to iwi, to marae, to whale, to hui, to wānanga, to whakawhanaunga. Growing up, I felt a bit out of place. When it came to me being in the usual classrooms at kura, I felt a bit weird to others in the sense that I couldn't relate to my classmates. They hadn't experienced the same things I had, and so I never really felt comfortable in common places right up until I moved to Wellington to study there. It wasn't until I left home I truly realized the value of my upbringing as a sense of self and cultural identity. I'm 26 years old now, and ngati wai, alone throughout the whole mahi since I was born. We have successfully facilitated the cultural harvest of up to 500 stranded marine mammals or cetaceans. This includes the harvest of like blubber and oil, meat, bone, and teeth from the likes of sharks, dolphins, seals, and of course whales and their various species. This aligns with the practice and philosophy of my old people, that Momo was to be kept to a minimal and that you are to make the most out of what is available. A classic example was kai from Pōaka, like the whekau and the tiro. If you're not familiar, this involves the stomach bag, intestines, organs, like the liver and kidneys and blood. Every part was used and a way honoured them. Another example is with ika and the use of the heads and vertebrae. There is a seasonal behaviour where we find these particular parts discarded and washed up along the shorelines. In my culture, this scene is considered dishonorable and even disrespectful to the gods that created them, especially when you do that to them in their own homes. He Māori, he taputanga mea katoa. I've been learning these types of things ever since I was born, into my family, tribe, and elders. And of course, you know, we are most famous for our cultural mahi with the whales. And people usually ask us stuff like, what are the usual causes of death? And without a doubt, human activity is a major contributor. For example, we're going back to one stranding with Ngāti Kuri. This was well over 10 years ago, near the Cape. There was a baby sperm whale. It died there, and I guess when the team was opening up that body, and they found those, you know, those usual plastic bags you chuck in your wheelie bin, you know, the rubbish wheelie bin. And the hapu, the people there, hine, who had done some of the mahi on one of the exhibition here, she named that whale Titi Mamai Ngākau. I te mea, tino mamai te ngākau ki te I tērā. It was a pup, it was a calf, we call them. And it was shocking to see their unfulfilled potential. And there's that's the spectacle, I usually call it, in a way that, you know, that's the mahi that we do that usually gets a lot of media, gets a whole heap of attention. But with my family, with my dad in particular, there's a whole other world of priorities for us at the moment. And a major one is the claim, the Y262 claim. In there is a number of taonga species listed by our tupuna, our kaumātua, that are integral to the cultural identity of our people. And one of them for us is the Kiore. And one of them is the whale, and a number of others. I just wanted to touch on our relationship with Te Papa. In the Taiao exhibition here, you'll see there's a number of taonga in there, but one of them is my father's tokotoko. On that tokotoko, you have a ruru or kōkō on the top there, and then you'll go down to, I think it might be a dog or a cat, and then on the bottom, you'll see a kiore. And to us, when we refer to kiore, that is specifically the Māori kiore, which is one of 5 species, I was told. And thanks to Dr. Mary Roberts, she had identified this species as was it Rattus exulans. And that was one of our tupunas. That's the species our tupunas brung over from the Pacific. But anyways, in the 80s, 90s times, you know, Doc and a number of other conservation groups did a national-wide list of pests and predators. And our taonga species was in that list. And it was thanks to Dad and the Ngātua Resource Management Unit, and with Whaia Mary Roberts in particular, and Mato Tamati, they managed to suss for us in Whangarei an area for us to look after an offshore island, which is in one of the hen and chickens. And that's for our species there. But anyways, that taonga was there, and then you got Dad's chainsaw, and of course you got a few other things that hopefully I can see tomorrow. which will be, it's like a full skeleton of a whale that was also stranded in Aotearoa. That whale was named after our auntie, Whaia Matikino. But anyways, I wanted to turn the attention a little bit more to, you know, like we don't do whale strandings 24/7. It only happens every now and again. At the moment, we're trying to put a bit more attention to the whangarei heads and the rohe from Breamhead te Whara to Pātaua to Pārua Bay. And I guess we wanted to work in our ngahere as the kind of other half to that mahi in the morning. At the moment, the things we see in it's it's a bit like you'd assume, oh wow, how beautiful forest that's just had its own amount of time to grow itself and all that. But there's these apparently up to 20 to 30 invasive pest weeds that have been introduced into the country. And if you look into these ngahere, you know, my kaumātua would refer to these ngahere as, that's not a ngahere. My namesake alone, the kauri. Apparently, according to the Northland Regional Council, the big ancient kauri we have left over today are less than 1%. Are less than 1% of what was originally in this country. In the forests we have today, only secondary, third, fourth. The closest for us would be either the Whangaruru Russell State Forest or going over to the Puketi. And I guess I wanted to bring a bit more attention to that. In the sense that we're making our team, you know, it's real tough in the environmental game, actually on the ground. And really want to give a big mahi to our writers, because at the end of the day, we're always having to come cap in hand for funding to try and do proactive mahi on the ground to protect what is important to us. But in order to protect what is important to us, we have to make habitable spaces for those taonga species. And, you know, you got those kōreros like ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au. Ko au te taiao, ko te taiao ko au. A philosopher can't help but draw parallels between what's happening in our immediate environment and with the taiao, what's happening actually out there, and drawing those connections with what it means to be a human with us and our social landscape, how we interact with each other. If you look at our ngahere in our moana, there are numerous breaches to the old laws. There's an imbalance that must be rebalanced. And you all don't need photos from me. You've all seen it on the internet, on Facebook, Instagram. And I guess some of the things I've seen, and you look at the country's population, I think Māori's only up to 15% last time I heard, and looking at our tōtara, our big tōtara and our big kauri, we've got weeds like Aleagnus, which is, you know, that's a weed with thorns about that long. And some of them are about 50 to 60 years old. And apparently they're brought over from Scotland to be hedges for the farmers' farms, And they've penetrated, they've intruded into our native forest. And they climb up our taonga trees, they strangle them, and they, I guess, take the light and overwhelm our ecosystems. I guess you can draw parallels even within Te Ao Māori and our tōtara whakaruriho that we have today. All my uncles and my dad and all of our knowledge holders of today that are still left over, the leftovers, you know, very much high in demand. You're taking them to all of these kaupapas here and there, and in a way, you're kind of disconnecting them from their own immediate ecosystems. Hi. Well, looking out into the future, you know, connecting with the ideals of Hiwa, and I guess setting forward your intentions, setting forward your goals. You know, there's a number of examples that I've seen in my own mahi. You've got, you know, last night I was talking to a number of others about looking into the future and the current state at the moment. And I guess how do you get hope for the future? It's pretty dark. And how was I going to connect that? A number of others, you know, they give up and they're saying, oh, it's too bad, too late. You know, the problem's so big. Why bother making an effort? You know? And I guess, like, for me, I've got a son now. I've got a family, and I've had my tribe, my people invest so much into me, my knowledge holders, that I have no choice but to have hope. I've got no choice but to continue forward and focusing on my own immediate ecosystem. It was just the other week, me and my team, we ended up paddling up our awa to identify what's happening to our kokota. And at the moment, you know, we've had a few times that our huai and our pipi have been overrun, overwhelmed. And we've been following up our awa, we can see all these farms with outdated practices of draining our repo and all that. And I know that's a down bias, but you know, going on the upside, at least we're making progress in the sense for my people. We're building capacity on the ground to, I guess, deal with like these pest animals and pest plants, to the point of we're getting so much support from the local communities, the Pākeas, or the local Crown councils, and heaps of philanthropists. Has been real awesome, and we definitely need more resources. I guess I always have to bring it back to the Weo Kaupapa because it's huge. You know, for one example is my boy, he's named after this last sperm whale we'd done in Whitianga. Yeah, Wharekaho on the east side of the Coromandel. That whale was named Hiwa-i-te-Rangi. And anyways, you'll see that there's a number of articles, and some have estimated them to be about 40 to 50 tons, you know, and I guess one perspective would see that whale on the beach and think, wow, what a big problem. I can't do that, I can't deal with, fix or clean that up on my own, eh? And throughout these years, ever since I was born, I guess we've been developing a method of breaking something like a giant task, almost impossible to do on your own, down into smaller bits. And it connects to that kōrero. E harataku toa I te tuataki tahi, engari he tuataki tini. And that is personified in our mahi. 50 tons moved in 2 days worth of work. We made the whole beach look like it's all tidy and all that, like as if nothing even happened. We have our methods that are tried and tested and true. Mai rano from our tupuna, Unfortunately, this one, because we work according to the mātauranga of whichever that mana whenua is of that particular beach. And we're working with our kaumātua and we ask them, where is the high tide mark matua? Where are the kaichakis? And we work according to that. So we have 2 or 3 holes in order to be as like a food base for that ecosystem. So yes, we take the taonga that are important to the tangata whenua, and then there's, I guess, other ota holes where that's like the leftover things that we aren't able to work with. And that would include like the leftover blubber that we can't break down, or the meats and so on. And we bury them no deeper than a metre into the dunes. And so all those little bugs can go in there, break that down in a year or two's time, and you know what eats those bugs? And then what eats those? And what eats those? It's, I guess, one of the old ways of redistributing or tohaing that energy, that mana out to the taio. But then I seen another article and talked to the kaumātuas. Due to these these cyclones and all these catastrophic weather events, the tides, even across our own rohe, all along the east coast, there's just been like catastrophic, like our dunes have been eaten out about 2 or 3 more metres inwards, hey? And anyways, that ota hole got pulled out. And unfortunately, it went in front of the neighbourhood's houses, and I guess they were real upset about it. And there's multiple versions of a story, and stuff told a real funny one. But anyways, just wanted to bring it back to making things possible, And I'm still on my journey into really figuring out how it's possible for the climate change, you know, the climate change, the big stuff, I'm still trying to figure that out. But at the moment, I'm just trying to focus on building the capacity of my people in my area, in my local ecosystem, to be able to be, you know, response able. And I guess looking into the future and, you know, making hopes and dreams, I hope that our local ecosystems get more of a voice. I hope that our people go out there and re-establish their relationship with those ecosystems, with the biodiversity, the flora and the fauna. I hope our people, I guess, it's a tough one. Do you guys got any questions so far anyways, before I head off? Yeah, I've been looking forward to the question and answers thing anyways. But, all right, thank you very much. My hopes and dreams.
Thank you, Cody. Also appreciate you and your education. Our final speaker, whānau, thank you for being patient. Thank you for being comfortable. And especially ngāmihi to the kids for not making too much noise. But yeah, thank you. So our final speaker for today, whānau, is Anahera Nin. Ngāti toa rangatira, ngāti huia, tauranga moana. Anahera is passionate about her people, rangatahi, and our changing climate. Anahera has a diverse background, having represented Aotearoa in rowing, gaining her bachelor's degree at the University of Michigan in the US, before working for her iwi at Te Ruranga o Toa Rangatira in their Treaty Settlement Relationships and Policy team. Anahera's current mahi is with the Ministry for the Environment as a principal policy analyst in the climate space. However, she is still doing mahi in her capacity as an iwi member, including establishing the first rangatahi Māori climate wānanga for the Art Confederation, Atiawa Raukawa I ki te tonga Toa Rangatira, and as Ngati Toa Rangatira representative on the Greater Wellington Long-Term Plan Committee. Anahera is also involved in other kaupapa to advocate for the activate whānau and rangatahi voices, including as an upane facilitator and as a member of the New Zealand US Youth Council, the Papa Pounamu Committee, and as an OECD Youthwise member. Whānau, please put your hands together for Anahera.
So, kia ora everybody, lovely to see you all. I bet you're all pretty, tired from listening to so many kōrero in a row. So e tū whānau, we're going to have a waiata, eh? Yeah. We'll have a bit of a waiata. Don't worry, I've got words on the screen so that you can have a show, so that you can sing along. Do a bit of stretching while I get it up, kōrero to your mate. Be like, wow, how cool were those kai kōrero? Alright, amazing. Kapai. Alright, I've got it on the... Oh, kapai. Oh. Kia ora. Kapai, thank you. Sweet. Everyone know ka pioi? Sweet. Awesome. We're going to sing that waiata now, okay? We'll start it there. Ka pioi e tohu aroha hau kainga. E hoki maira, kia kite atu I tō iwi e. E rota ana, e kata ana maira. Puka na whetero, e tero mai te ihia o matua. Kia kite atu anō. Tahua e kanapara. Pupuhia I e te hau, ka pohia kuroi mata. Ka pioi oi, tohu aroha hau kainga. Ka pioi oi, e tohu aroha hau kainga. Hia Te ao inainei, navigating what does that haerenga look like for them, and actually re-establishing and reinvigorating their people's connection to their whenua, their tai ao. So kia ora e ngā kai kōrero. For me and myself, ko wai au, I tupu aki au ki te reo Waikato, I raro te korowai o Ngāti Mahanga, nō reira, e noho ana au ki Poreroa inainei, ki te 502. I would say who's here from Kōrero, but I won't embarrass you guys. I know you'll be pretty whakamā to say who you are at the moment, but kei te pioneer, hopefully some of our whānau are watching too. I guess, obviously I grew up in Hamilton, but I have whakapapa to Tauranga Moana through my mother's side, and then Ki Konei through my father's side. So all of the maps that you see, this map over here shows some of the places that I whakapapa to. And like all of you, I have whakapapa to many places, and we actually all descend from some amazing tupuna that we may or may not know right now. So that's kind of the, foundation of my kōrero today is how your whakapapa can help delineate your pathway and future forward. Okay, so this is a little bit of my whānau. So there on the left here you can see my father's side, and then in the middle here my mother's side, and then my immediate whānau on the right here. And so today I'm going to be centred on my koro, Baknin, and then my nani ohia, to kind of give you a sense of how my reflecting of my journey to where I am today has made me realise just how much my own whakapapa has helped to delineate my pathway forward. So we'll start off with my koro Bak. So this is Baknin. He was a contemporary artist, a secondary school teacher, kai Pākehī, so businessman, and he was also a bit of an activist as well. He grew up in on Mangakahia Road in Kaikohe, and so he actually grew up in Ngāpuhi and Te Tai Tōkero territory, but that wasn't where he was whakapapa to. And he actually didn't know that he wasn't Ngāpuhi until his mum told him, and he was real gutted when he found out. But then he found out who his real iwi was, and he was like, oh, cool, even better. No, just jokes, I'm kidding. But he really did, that was something that he found growing up, is while he was obviously connected to the people that he grew up around in Kaikohe, he still longed for that connection to his own whenua, to his own people. And that was expressed a lot through his art. So his art was all about expression, the expression of whakapapa to the land, of Māori connection to our whenua, and then our, just how we place make and connect to those places. So that's my koro, a little bit about his story. He became an artist really because he was really mawīwi when he was a kid. And the doctors told his mum, oh, he's just a lazy married boy, don't worry about him, he's fine. Had to take him to the hospital like 3 times before they listened to her and realised that he had rheumatic fever. And so that really, inhibited his ability to actually, do any of the fun stuff. And he had to stay in hospital a lot. So he went in and out of hospital a lot. And during his time in the Huhipera, what he did was he actually learned to draw there, learned to do his, mahi toi in there. And that's where he found his love for art. So through that trial, through that challenge, he found his calling, his mahi toi. So that was my koro. He actually went through his life doing quite a few different kaupapa. He was involved in a lot of different kaupapa. But what his main passion was his mahi toi. And this particular painting is all about the Land March, the one that happened in the 70s. He was part of that protest, but also expressed it through his art. And why that's so important is because that was also a really big time for him, where he started to reconnect to his own people. They'd always, he'd always had connections, always knew who his aunties were, but he managed to actually during this time start to reconnect to his iwi and start to express that reconnection through his art. Now, why that's, I guess, so, why that's so important to the kōrero is because that's something that I've been on the journey for as well. Like, our whānau aren't as connected. We live in Kiriroa. When my koro died in 96, there was no real wave back for us. And so that was part of my journey over the past few years, was actually how can I help to reconnect our whānau, all in that theme of this year, Matariki kāinga hokia. That's kind of been my life for the past few years. But anyway, we'll continue. So something about my koro that I thought was really interesting when I was, having a think about whakapapa and delineating our pathway forward. My koro's tupuna, tātana te whataupoko, actually helped build the original whare of Tō Rangatira, which is one of the Ngāti Tō Rangatira marae in Porirua. So he actually helped to build this whare that you can see on the screen here. And why that's so important is because I believe that was a direct expression. So his mahi toi, tātana te whataupoko's mahi toi, was able to be directly expressed through my koro and his mahi toi. And so again, my koro was continuing that lineage of kind of that mahi toi space, that kai whakairo space into his own mahi that he was doing. And then how that applies to me, my koro, like these are just random things that I've kind of reflected on as I kind of stand before you today. My koro went to a very Pākehā university when he went to go and do his degree, and he found it very isolating and challenging. I guess likewise I went to a very Pākehā high school and university, and kind of noting the key differences. We both went from a very Māori-dominated community to Pākehā spaces. Learning how to navigate that was a challenge, but we, I think both of us really worked to try and figure out how we could do that to make it work for us. So that was something that I found upon reflection was kind of expressed through me. Something else, Kōrero Buck also, his mahi toi was all about land whenua connection to us as people and people connecting to whenua. My mahi is in the taiao. It wasn't deliberate, but it just so happened that I'm really passionate about that kaupapa, passionate about connecting to our taiao. When I was working for the iwi, that was my main mahi, was figuring out how we can do that mahi and reconnect our people in different ways. And then now I also work in the climate change space, so all of that connection I feel like has expressed itself through my mahi. Another aspect of it is, I guess there was also one thing, he went to go study in the States, I got my degree in the States, and he also wanted to ensure that our whānau could, reconnect. He did the mahi while he was alive to reconnect to his people, to his marae, etc. But when he died, there was no real connection again. And so my mahi over the past few years has been to reconnect to our people, reconnect to our own whānau pūrākau, and then hopefully bring out my specific whānau back down to this place to learn more, to grow more, and to be more strong in their, iwitanga, whether it's Ngāti Tōtanga or Ngāti Raukawa-tanga. So, those are kind of ways that I think our whakapapa, or at least in my case, through my koro, who I never actually got to meet, he died the year before I was born, was able to express itself in my pathway forward. So that's my koro buck. Now we're moving on to my nani ohia. Now my nani, Kataraina ohia, I knew her, I grew up knowing her. She lived in Tauranga, in our homestead, and she was a beautiful, as you can see, quite beautiful, quite a looker. And that's what our whānau said. She was a very beautiful wahine, but she was the fourth eldest of 14, the usual about our tupuna, brought up in big whānau. I guess they had nothing else in those days. But anyway, but she was the fourth oldest, so she had some of that responsibility, but did a lot of mahi with her dad. But she really, really loved to sing. She was all about waiata, loved to sing in her. She had a church choir she was part of, loved to sing in that, loved to do haka. But when we were growing up, we didn't really know that about her. So because she was, in her late 70s, early 80s when I knew her, she was kind of at that point where, she'd sing occasionally with us at home, but we didn't really know that side about her. And so it was really awesome when watching ngā taikura o Tauranga Moana that we found a waiata that apparently she had taught to the whānau. And this was our way of kind of understanding a bit more about who she was and, how that expression of waiata came to be in our whānau. So I'll just play you a little excerpt so you can place make.
Te kiti e homo ai te waiata kia hau, engari nā tana kuia ngāhi raka e hoatu te waiata ki aia e te wā te kuia e rima te kaumatahi wana tau. And ki te tana kōtiro, Auntie Topsy, who was 80-something when she passed away, she was only te kaumatahi wana tau. So ko te mea pai kia homai tia tērā wahi, tērā waiata ki tēnei roku.
that's a beautiful waiata, but we actually never grew up learning it. And so knowing that there's a waiata out there that we can now learn to reconnect to our nani, but also to continue that expression of waiata in our whānau is something we're really looking forward to. And we've actually got a whānau reunion with her side of the whānau, the Tiketi whānau, i Tauranga Moana. This year we're hopefully going to learn this waiata. So although we didn't really know that side of our nani, it's definitely been expressed in our whānau. That is a way that we like to pass the time, that is a way that we like to connect to each other, and being able to see opportunities like, you know, these things that Te Papa actually put out, and being able to connect to her through waiata that we didn't even know existed, is just an amazing opportunity. And it's just funny how that comes up, whether it's intentional or not. So that's the example of how our nani ohia's love for waiata has been expressed through our whānau now. So for me, I think, aroha mai, just get back to the next slide. So for another expression of, I guess, you know, expression of whakapapa delineating that pathway forward recently, very recently, this week in fact, we had Ngāti Toa Rangatira had their first hautapu and umu kohu on whitireia maunga and Pōrero in, you know, at least over hundreds of years. It's been a long time since we've been allowed as an iwi to express our ahi kāro on this maunga, and to be able to do that in a way that whānau were able to come together and celebrate the bringing in of, you know, Matariki and all of the amazing celebrations that we could with it, was just an awesome, I guess, expression, literally, of that whakapapa through our pathway forward. And even now, it's, you know, I was there as a volunteer going to whānau, you know, I was there as a volunteer, I wasn't doing anything important, more just going, oh, please whānau, you know, don't come here, please, just mind your way. But even on the outskirts, having, you know, looking in and watching the kai karakia and our kai karanga express, you know, their intentions to Matariki, and expressing, you know, our iwi intentions as, you know, e toru mana whenua o tēnei rohe. It was just an incredible experience, and it truly gave new meaning as we chanted the end of our haka, aupane kaupane whititera. You know, as we walk forth into a new day and the sun was rising, it was a very poetic moment for our iwi, and something that I think truly, again, outlines the delineation of our future as an iwi. Now, I'm also very aware that there are whānau and people who are watching who may not actually know that side of themselves. They might not know, you may not know, like a lot of your pakapapa or where you're from, and that's okay. I think the biggest thing that I've been finding on this journey is, you know, at the end of the day, you may not know them, but they know you. You may not know them by name, but they know yours. And I think this video right here, I don't know who's seen Res Dogs, but this particular ataata is just an incredible representation of what I think that looks like. So,
breathing for a second. Remember the stories I told you when you were growing up about the people we come from. Generations of medicine people. Caretakers. These are the ones who held us together as we arrived from our homelands. The healers who carried us and buried us as we marched. Men and women whose songs led us through the dark. They're watching you, my girl. You don't need me. You have them. This is the power we carry. When you really pray, they're all around you. All the time.
Oh shit.
Take takes focus, though. Intent. Breathing for a second.
That video always gets me because I think it's a beautiful representation of how we live in our spaces today. You always have your tupuna around you, they're always guiding you, but it's up to you to, I guess, take up their tono and see if you're willing to go along the path that they've put out for you. It's up to you to continue writing the story, your story, to continue writing what your future looks like. You know, you hold the pen, but your tupuna are the ones giving you the words through, you know, whispering them to you. So just to finish off, I'd really like to give you kind of a tono or a challenge or something to just think about, you know, what is your aspiration or hope, not just for you, but for your hapori, for your whānau, for your iwi, for whatever that looks like for you. What does your future look like, and how will you, create that to be a good ancestor? Because one day, you know, those wahine that were surrounding that kōrero, that will be you. So what will that look like for you, okay? So, again, I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, because I think that's enough for you guys for today. But nō reira, I want to leave you with the whakatauki that we all know, e kore ngaro, he kākanoa hau I ruia mai a rangatahi. I am a seed sown from greatness. It is up to you to continue to realise that greatness, to determine your future, and you help make sure that you're listening to your tupuna guide you forward. Nō reira, I take a moment, reflect. Hope you enjoyed the kōrero today. And I'll leave you with aupane, kaupane whetitira. Step forth into your greatness to see another day. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Anaida. Thank you for that, sis. Beautiful kōrero. I'm just going to ask our speakers if they could, make their way back upstage. We were meant to have a break, but we're running behind on time because we just have so much wisdom to offer you guys. So I'll just ask our speakers, but while our speakers are coming up to the stage to take a seat in these comfortable chairs, there are two mics to their left and right. We are welcoming any questions that anyone has in the audience. If you guys have anything that you guys want to ask to our speakers, our rangatahi here, our young people, feel free to ask. Cody's on his way. So don't be whakamā. If you're too shy to ask a question, maybe think of a question that the person next to you is too shy to ask. And you ask it for them. Sure. But yeah. So yeah, make your way to the mic if you do have a question. My wifey Sarah is going to ask us our first question. Aren't you, babe? Is everyone's mics on? Can we just check?
Meow. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Just yell if it's not.
My first question is for Anahira. That was a beautiful video, sis, that you shared. So my question is, what is your encouragement for anyone starting out their journey of knowing their whakapapa and where they come from?
Great pātai. I think, so in my experience, the whole whakapapa kōrero, it's really not been super intentional for me. I've kind of went along my journey, and upon reflection, I realised, wow, look at all these, very similar things that have come up through me in my journey that are, I guess, tohu from my tupuna. So I guess something is just, for me, is probably the first step is just to reflect, reflect on where your journey is heading and what your journey has been so far, and then be curious. Ask your whānau if you do have those whānau who know, and if you don't, do your rangahau, because they will guide them, they will guide you to them. I think that's kind of the thing. If you've got that intention and if you're really keen, then it'll present itself to you, whether that takes months, years, te mea, yeah.
Beautiful. Good answer.
Good answer. We've heard the amazing advocacy and community kaupapa-driven mahi that you guys all do, which is ongoing and everlasting. My question to you guys is, who inspires you to do this amazing mahi in your personal life or in the public sphere? We'll start with my right here. Young Queen.
I think for me, at first it was definitely my family, but it's expanded beyond that. I'm very conscious that as the first generation of my family here in New Zealand. My parents came with dreams and hopes to Aotearoa, right? But at the same time, it's important for me when it comes to climate change work, when it comes to advocacy work, to expand that and be able to look to Samoa as my homeland, but also Aotearoa as my home too. So what inspires me is, of course, all our amazing rangatahi that we have in the space doing the work, but also the elders that we have, the giants that we stand on. There was a time where I used to think that to be able to be an activist or advocate, you had to be the top of the top. You had to do all the things that people in the media were doing. You had to reach for the highest heights, when really some of the most powerful people that inspire me are those who are just around in the community, who are doing it for the sake of doing it. There's a really clear memory I have of an elderly woman who used to stand on the street and just sweep it. And it was like, if you know in Mangere where the Burger King is, and it's right next to King's College and Otahu College as well, she used to just stand there and sweep every day, to the point that we used to think, like, is she okay? Should we go ask her for help? And one day my brother stopped and asked her, like, do you need to go home? And she said, no, like, I just come in and do this because I can. And really, that's so inspiring to me. Not the accolades or anything else behind it. It's the people power. And of course, our ancestors as well. And so the people change, the inspiration's constant, but the underlying principle is the foundation. And that's what makes it a movement. And that's so inspiring to be a part of as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Phoebe.
Set the brow pretty high. What? Ngā mihi, the whole time I was like, fuck, what am I going to say? To be real hearty and vulnerable, I think the rangatahi that we've lost to suicide and violence, particularly our rangatahi Māori, is what guides me. Those who lay in the arms of Hine Nui Te Pō, those who didn't get to grow up to know what it's like to be a kaitiaki, those who are looking after us in the moana, those who are now taniwha, those who are now butterflies that guide our mahi, those that are living in the stars. I think they live through all of us. Every cheeky comment, every mana enhancing pukana, every kōrero, every karakia, every waiata, it's for our rangatahi. They deserve better.
Beautiful. Thank you, Koe.
Man, those are Mickey answers. I guess I'll take maybe more of a personal note, I guess, for me. I've been lucky enough to be, again, I think hopefully this is clear through my presentation, but there's no way I would have been where I've been or gone to where I've gone without the support of my whānau. So as always my whānau first, and then I guess there are people around me who have supported me, and also I've looked up to be able to kind of follow them through these pathways forward. And I'll just kind of give you some specific examples. I think Ngāti Tō Rangatira as an iwi, we've had lots of strong people who have forged the path forward for us. And so, for example, we've got our tupuna such as Te Rauparaha, Te Rangi Haiata, who came down and brought our people from where they would inevitably have been wiped out to a place down here, to our treaty settlement, those who led our treaty settlement, to those today leading our iwi into better places. So we're very lucky to have people that surround us constantly who we're gathering inspiration from. And our rangatahi also are just awesome as. So again, it's just, we've got a great system, I think, here in Aotearoa. We have so many people to look up to. But yeah. Right.
True. Thank you, Anna.
What was the question again? It was like,
what inspires you to carry on this mahi? Because this mahi's hard, putting yourself out there in the forefront. You're going to get pushed back. So what keeps you
inspired, keeps you going, and yeah, I was just thinking back to my teachers and the different tohunga I've been lucky enough to be around, to listen to their different kōrero about how it was for them as children and what their lifestyle was like. And like looking up to other people like these pioneers in Te Ao Māori, for me, and like some names like Matua Heke Nukumai, Puhipi, Taheke Nukumai, Hector Busby, and I guess pioneering in the way of bringing back an old practice of tārai waka, and being integral to the creation of waka haurua. I look at other pioneers or other tohunga in the north, like Matariki Makiha, about listening to his wānangas, and I think it's quite inspiring to like hear the old kōrero, and for me, like holding on to the kōrero and then being able to go out into the field and apply those kōrero about the maramataka, about the atuas out there, about the taiao. And I think like I'm looking, like what I want to be in another 25 years is like I want a real tight relationship with our ngahere and our moana and its various constituents, with all those tuakana. Like I romantically imagine that one day, like after we've been developing these tools, to record in a better way, or not better way, but to work for our generation of kaitiaki and the taiao at the moment. And I think it's got a lot of potential. But anyways, looking like, I romantically imagine taking a class of 20 or something like that out into the Waipoua forest. I imagine telling them about these, or showing them these stars in the early morning that rise at the right time, and we go into the ngahere in the afternoon, and I tell them about this beautiful kauri tree, and I tell them about this type of wind that hits the trees, and that's the time when the seeds drop. And then I can just say, like, right now, it's that relationship that I want with the taiao. And I guess just in the different mahi, seeing on the ground, you know, of course with the whales, and you've got 40 to 50 people that's on the ground, working together, coordinated, everybody knows their roles. And we're just doing more than what one person can do, doing so much more. Your abilities are just amplified. For you're on that high. When you finish the mahi, you begin to believe that, holy heck, you could do anything if you had enough people. You could honestly do anything.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Cody, bro.
Okay, so I've got a question for Quack. Very entertaining kōrero, by the way. So you speak about your aspirations for a te tiriti-centric Aotearoa. So if we don't leave that to the politicians, what can we as individuals in our own communities do to make this an achievable reality?
Fascinating partai, because I don't think it's up to like an everyday citizen to be academic experts on how to honour te tiriti. I think it's empowering when our whānau Māori understand, not even our whānau Māori, the responsibility shouldn't be on us. I find it empowering when tangata Pākehā or tangata Tauiwi understand their role to play in honouring te tiriti, whether it's down to if you're hosting someone for kaupapa, offering them kai or inu, or holding them in manaakitanga. I think being open to be corrected, humiliated, and embarrassed if you get something wrong. A lot of the pushback I've seen from Pākehā is focused around their ego, and they centre themselves in araru. When we ask them to pronounce our kupu properly, it's not about the tone they're using, but it's the mana of the ancestor, the mana of the maunga awa that they're not giving effect to. But I hope that answers your part. I don't think it's up to our everyday citizens. If the politicians are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, they better not fuck over our country, and they better honour te tiriti.
Anyone else to that?
Anahira looks like she's got something to say.
I was going like this. Te tiriti central. I mean, tautoko, tō kōrero, Quack. I think it's definitely not really up to us to know all the ins and outs. It's more, what does it look like to us on the everyday? And actually, I love Cody's kōrero about, you know, at the end of the day, our strength is in our collective, it's not as individuals. And once we realise that we're on this haerenga together as tangata whenua, as tangata tiriti, whatever that looks like, I think once we realise that and once we're able to collectivise like that, that's when we'll be able to kind of move forward to this te tiriti-centric Aotearoa. And I think we really can't do that, I guess. I won't say, I don't want to say anything too, you know, maybe out the gate, but I really do think that it's in our rangatahi's hands, like this generation and our generation coming forward, that's where we're going to see the change. We're seeing it already too with, you know, people like Quack and Philly and Cody, but yeah, that's just kind of, I think, how I see it eventuating, I guess.
Kia ora. I mean, speaking of our rangatahi, when I look at the space of climate change and environmental, you know, activism, our rangatahi are leading that space. What do you guys say? I'll target you, Philly. What is your response to those of us, my generation and above, who claim, who believe climate change is not real, it's a conspiracy, etc., etc.?
If you can't believe the news, believe people's stories. And I'm not talking about those who have anything to gain from lying about the climate crisis. I'm talking about the very real reality that across the world, Indigenous people are on the forefront. My relationship to climate change didn't come from news articles. It didn't come from complicated academic reports. It came from hearing stories from those in the islands who were living through these tragedies, who knew their ecosystems and their habitats well enough to say there's something wrong. And there's something really wrong if we keep continuing the way we're going. I would say that we're at a point of time where it's so crucial to be open to perspectives that aren't just yours. Just because we can't feel the impact of the climate crisis right here, right now, doesn't mean it's not being felt anywhere in the world. There was a very specific story that stayed with me for years of a woman in Kiribati. She was talking about how every time the king tide comes, the women of the village will tie ropes around their waists, tie it to the end of a bucket, and place their babies in the buckets to make sure that they don't drown in the floods. And the frequency that we're seeing situations like this across the world, it's too high for us to be ignorant, willfully ignorant. Climate change is real. It's here right now, not in the future. It won't be your kids, your grandkids. It may be them, but there are kids and grandkids and grandmas and grandpas, mums and dads in the world right now who are feeling that right now. So I would say, please look for those perspectives. Look for the actual stories of real human life. If you go and you listen to those stories and you listen to that mana and you still don't believe in the climate crisis, I don't think I have the answers for you. I think that's an indication that you need to heal through something if you can't listen to the needs and the pains of people in need when it comes to this crisis that affects us all. By the time it affects you, it might be too late. So we should act right now. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. Beautiful answer. Anyone else to that? She summed it up really well there. Ka pai. Anyone have a question out there? Unless you want us to keep going? Yep, sweet. Tū whakamā? Okay. Don't be shy, they're all cool, they're cool. My question to you guys, to all of yous, what advice would you give your 14-year-old self? This is a pātai for our rangatahi out there who are listening and look up to you guys. What advice would you give to your 14-year-old self? Just thought I'd throw that deep one in there. Cody?
Oh, no, I'd probably stay home. I don't know, that's what I'd tell myself if I was 14. Stick to, like, I don't know, there's, I guess, I was taught in different ways. So I had, like, my te ao Māori, that was like, I had got a very staunch father, and he was very staunch about his teachings in te ao Māori. and his values and priorities We're different to, I guess, not so much mums, but into te ao Pākehā and the mainstream and into like the usual spaces, like our mainstream media and even going into like mainstream schools and all that. At the time, that's what I was beginning to go into Whangarei Boys High School, and I was moving over. On my last 2 years, I went to Whangarei Boys High School, and I moved over from a kura kaupapa Māori, and there was like 14, 15 students, every class, the same students, but different teachers. And then I went over to Boys High School, and there was like 20 to 30 students, different boys, different class, every class, someone different. I was jumping into like a bigger, more chaotic space, I think. And the values and the priorities that were in there were quite... I only moved because they had more options. They had graphics, for drawing, and they had calculus and all these other different subjects, which I was interested at the time, but it wasn't available in kura kaupapa Māori. But anyways, I feel like I might have been, what's the word? Seduced, maybe. That, hey, you want to be an architect, you go to university, you study the ways of the world. And then I ended up going to Wellington here and studying and end up with teachers. Some of them had lost their love to teach, and so I was literally showing up to lectures where the teacher showed up and read the reading book. He did not once look up to the audience to, you know what I mean? I just felt a little bit ripped off there. And also that knowledge was very broad. It was a bit too broad, to the point that it got to too much theory and not enough practical to actually exercise and practice that muscle. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was those two. So I ended up with those crossroads in 2017 of who do I pick? Not who do I pick, but there's an imbalance, and the te ao Pākehā was overpowering my te ao Māori teachings, and I realised it was time to go back home, time to give more energy to my people at home.
Thank you, Cody, bro. Beautiful. What about you, Anahita?
Probably just be more staunch in your Māoritanga. I think, going from a predominantly Māori school to a very Pākehā high school, I was a bit of a chameleon and allowed myself to, in order to survive, we sometimes try to blend in, we blend into our surroundings. And so, I was probably I think if I was to go back, I'd say just be staunch, be who you are, don't worry about it. I think that's probably what I'd tell 14-year-old Anahita. Yeah, like.
True. Still a comedian. That Pākehā girl ain't for you, quick. The love that you won't meet the love of your life at 14, and she won't have. Anyways, probably. Stop talking, shut up. But also, the environment that was created there was not space held for like people who need to tutu and need to talk and have ADHD. So shame on my teachers, but also shut up and listen. Be more staunch. Tautoko te rā.
I think I'll tell my 14-year-old self that there's nothing wrong with the parts of you that you can't change. I say that because growing up in the hood in Mangere, proud Samoan, proud South Aucklander, 14 was around the time I realized that there was a whole different narrative out there in the country and in the world about who I was as a person compared to who I thought I was. And it took some time to unlearn all of that conditioning. It was a lot to look at the media and have all these things said about my communities, and then to walk outside and not see that as the reality, you know? And I would tell her, like, the love that you see around you, focus on that. You're not ratchet or phobi or ghetto for being what you can't change. But the circumstances that you're born into, you don't have to let them define you. And you don't have to let that define the people that you love either. You can build different avenues. As a 14-year-old, it's a lot. So any other rangatahi out there who want to make change in the world, man, you don't have to change all these things that you can't change. You know, be proud of who you are, and learn how to take that pride and be so proud that the people around you feel safe being proud of who they are, even if you aren't the same. The difference makes a difference. Oh, that sounded
Okay, so whānau pātai for today. My question to you, each of you, is what is your personal aspiration for the new year and for the year ahead? And we'll start with Craig.
Oh, God. No, I wasn't prepared. I was going to say something that's going to get me in trouble by my partner, so I won't. For my life, I want to be a detail car cleaner and have my own YouTube channel, just cleaning cars. But because of the politicians, we're forced to be activists. For the new year, I'm moving down to Pōneke, in Hanuere, which is exciting. But for the new year, learn to put myself first and learn to not need to validate your self-worth by doing all the kaupapa. I was also looking for another tāmoko, and I've been given the tono too many times for the next obvious tāmoko, and I'm ignoring all the kaumatua, but maybe that's a moko kanohi is the next haidinga. Can I choose who's next?
Yes.
Ko koe.
Ka pai. Tāku wawata I tēnei tau. Probably at the moment, I've got a few, but I think one that I'll share with you today is just, again, Matariki kainga hokia is not just a theme for me. I think it's a purpose at the moment for me and my whānau. And so that's kind of a big one at the moment, and one particular, like, real specific aspiration I have is to actually reconnect or go on that reconnection haerenga with our whānau to my koro, or to my papa's, my mum's dad's whānau in Tūwharetoa. So we're very disconnected from that side of us because he was whāngaid to his koro in Tauranga. And so there's been opportunities and tohu that have come about for us to make that reconnection back. And so I think I tēnei tau, that's something that we as a whānau are trying to do. But yeah, that whole stuff, that stuff makes me really, that fills my cup. So yeah, that's why I shared that particular whāinga with everybody. Kia ora. Kei a koe Cody.
I've been talking about it for a few others at the moment in regards to the Matariki Puanga. This time of the year, I've found definitely over the past 3 years, it's just been full on and kaupapas, June, July, and just heaps of wānangas, huis, and it makes sense to do so, and organising them according to our moon phases and so on. And I guess the more and more our people shift, the more and more New Zealand shifts their I guess, behaviours and the way we organise time, it just makes sense that maybe in the future, I hope that it could be like our Māori Christmas, you know, we're encouraged to just chill out and have a holiday for maybe 4 weeks or something, would be nice. But like, you know, and then we could be more encouraged, you know, when my whanaunga's coming back to the beach, to the whenua, you know, to just have holidays, and, you know, in summertime, great, but also there's some mahi to do too. You've got, apparently the summer solstice is like, 15 hours, roughly speaking, and winter solstice, that's 10 hours of daylight, you know what I mean? It kind of makes sense, according to our taiao here, to work according to the natural rhythms So, like, for example, today I was talking to Sonia, must be a whiro around. And, I hypothesised that the tide's going out now. You know what I mean? In regards to that, the heke and the wairua at the moment that I'm sensing. But yeah, it's like just me and my partner Holly, we dream about, we think, we say we want to be Pākehā in Puanga Matariki. We want to go, I want to go overseas, escape all the kaupapas that's at home, all the wānangas that we have to do the mahi for, doing all the kai, and like organising and all that. That's a lot of energy and effort. But so maybe my dream for next year might be going to Tahiti and hang out with the whanaungas over there, and maybe they can manaki us.
I think it's also to what everyone said, like the mahi can be full on sometimes. And so for me, I'm in a process of stripping everything back to the fundamentals. Having spent like the better half of my teens in this mahi, I think it was important for me, now that I turned 20, to strip it back and not have to feel like you're constantly having to mend everything together. Because, all the problems that we face in society, these institutionalized problems, they overlap a lot of the time, which means that the mahi overlaps a lot of the time, even if we're not intending for it to. And so it can be hard to really see where you fit into everything. And so to make it less hard on myself, I've just taken it back to, why did I start doing this in the first place? Who am I doing it for? And letting that guide me for this new part of the journey I'm on right now. And so, trying to keep it simple and clean.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for your kōrero today, for sharing your heart, your wisdom, your knowledge, your passion. Like you guys, I've been in this space of domestic violence and men's mental health, suicide. I've been speaking up about it since I was 15. I'm 37 now, and it's tiring. It's lonely, it's arduous, the mahi's hard, there's always another wānanga, there's always another hui. But I really, knowing that you guys are here, having these courageous conversations and pushing, hacking the system, as we say, my children are here in the audience, you guys are their superheroes. We didn't have many superheroes growing up. My heroes were Tupac and Biggie, because my culture was stripped from me. We were told not to speak Samoan in school growing up in Christchurch because there weren't many brown people, so we had to blend in. So I lost my language, and so to have my kids look up to you guys, people like you guys who are firm in your beliefs, who are about the kaupapa, living it and breathing it, like, I want to honor you guys. Thank you for being our mahi that we have wished and hoped for that our children will grow up surrounding. So thank you very much. I feel very blessed to have shared the space with you guys, to listen to you guys. I mean, I see you guys on social media because that's where, our young people live. So just to meet you guys in person, and obviously I've met Philly a few times now, but you guys, it's very humbling and honouring. So from my heart, from the bottom of my heart, ngā mihi nui, whakatau te lava.
Tautoko there. I think it's been amazing to hear each of you and your personalities shine through the mahi, and you make it your own, and just keep speaking, keep sharing your kōrero with the world. It's important. And by you having the courage to rise and share, you encourage others to rise and share. So I just honour each of you, and thank you so much for your hard mahi to make Aotearoa what it can be. So kia ora.
Back over to
That's
Whaia.
Kia ora, anō nei te mihi kia koutou ngā kai kōrero mo tēnei rā. Thank you so much for making the time to come and be with us during Matariki. Kei te rongo au I ngā kōrero, te wairua hoki. I really felt everything that came from each of you today. So thank you so much. Everyone came and they stayed because, the kōrero was beautiful. So I'm not going to say too much more, but I'll just close with a karakia. kia tau te wairua, and so we can have a good, safe journey home. E rongo, ko te rongo a whare, ko te rongo a marae, ko te rongo a te hā, ko te rongo mai whiti. Kia hau mai ko te rongo, ko te mau ngā rongo, ko te rongo mau. E rongo, whakairia ki runga, kia tīna. Haumi e hui e. Mauri ora, kia ora.